Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to another video. My name is Prince Mason. If you have been following me on Instagram recently, then you know I put out some of these photos. I think two of these photos I'm just going to show you guys. This one, I think it's this right here and this photo. And I'll be showing you guys how I retouched these photos to get them to look like this. Now I'll be using two different techniques to retouch. The first one would be using my pro retouching pack. So if you do not have that, then just check out the second technique, which you really can't just do by yourself without getting anything. But if you have my pro retouching pack, then you should definitely check out the first technique. I feel like both of them are really good. They give you a lot of control, and they would also help you get to your results, faster. The pro retouching pack will help you faster, but the other technique, which we're still going to use, frequency separation, will still help you get there faster. With both of them, I'm also going to use micro dodge and burn. This is going to be kind of a lengthy video, just wanting to let you guys know. So sit back, relax, and I'm going to be showing you how you can get your photos to look like this in no time. So the image we're going to be using is this image, and I like it for a few reasons. The first one is her skin is really clear, and that's one thing I always tell people when it comes to retouching, right? You want to shoot an image that looks really good, because that way it's going to help you out with retouching a lot, and also shoot models that actually have really nice features, or like have really nice skin. It helps a lot in retouching. Now, if you are just showing your client and your client doesn't have great skin, make sure the makeup is done very well. And if the makeup is not done well, then we resort to, retouching and making sure we have image looking great in post. But typically having a subject that has really nice skin and, makeup done properly will go a long way to help you. So the first thing I want to do with this image is just add a little bit of contrast. Now, I'm retouching this image the way I would retouch an image I'll give a client, or an image I'll put in my portfolio. So I'll properly retouch this image for you guys to see. That's why I said this is probably going to be a pretty lengthy video, right? So the first thing I want to do with this image, I'm in Capture One, by the way. So right now we are in Capture 123. Is the new Capture One. If you do not have it, you've not updated your Capture One, then definitely go ahead and update it. And also, if you use Lightroom, then it's totally fine. You can just process your raw files in Lightroom and take it into Photoshop. I personally like using Capture One. Okay, great. So the first thing I like to do is turn on my exposure warning to see the parts of my images that are overexposed. Now with this image, you can see the background is overexposed because that's the way I lit it. By the way, I have a behind the scenes video coming up soon, so I'll definitely be showing you guys that. I'm putting it up very soon. Okay, great. So the first thing I'll do is come down here to my levels, as you guys can see right here on the left side. And what I want to do is drag in my blacks, basically my shadows. So I'm just going to turn off my exposure warning so you guys can see this, my before and after. As you guys can see, I have dragged in my blacks. 13 is 12, 13 is fine. Now the reason why I can drag in this much is you can see where my blacks actually start from here, and you can see that obviously my highlights are already peaking at this point. Now this is basically your histogram. My image being right here in the middle, or all my information being here in the middle, just means that my image is perfectly exposed. But as you can see, it's a little bit flat, and that's because of the amount of light that was used to shoot this image. You have a lot of light coming from the back to create this very high key light, and also create like a rim light. So the next thing I want to do is just drag in from here like this. I will drag in my highlights too. Now this is the part where I'll turn on my exposure warning, because I do not want her skin to be overexposed. These parts are fine, but still, I like to pull that back just a little bit, just somewhere around here, and that's totally fine. Now for the most part, this is all I'll do right here in Capture One. I would not do it a lot more than this. If for some reason I just feel like I want to add some warmth to the image, what I can do is at this point I don't need to select my subject. I can just go to color and then go to master. I will just turn this off so this can come up here. So I'll just go to master and then just add some warmth to my image, something like this. Something like this is totally fine. Maybe just take it up a little bit towards greens. Something like this, totally fine. And this is our before, this is after. So at this point I am done doing anything in Capture One. And what I'm going to do right now is just edit this image in Photoshop. So I'm just going to click, then go to edit with and Photoshop. Not open with, edit with Photoshop. Resolution 300 pixels. I typically use PSD as my format because file sizes tend to be just a little bit smaller than TIFF. I don't use JPEG because obviously I want to keep some of my layers after retouching in Photoshop. So now I'm just going to click edit variants and I'll wait for this to pop up in Photoshop. Okay, so now we have this image in Photoshop, and the first thing I want to do is, take out a few things, in the background. So I like starting out that way. Sometimes I forget, but for the most part, it's always nice to start that way. So what I'm going to do is just create a new layer. Now, when it comes to retouching, I always tell people retouching is just figuring out how to solve problems. It's that simple. There are different ways to solve issues in Photoshop. You just don't have one way to do it. But retouching is about solving problems and just figuring out what tools and what techniques can help you solve a problem. Now, there are different ways to go about, sorting out different things in Photoshop. For example, the first thing I want to do is take out this piece of hair right here. The easiest way to go about it is to just pick a clone stamp tool, then just go to either current and below or all layers. And all I'll have to do is just paint over this. This is pretty easy. Now, the only problem with this is I probably have to go in here and just be a little bit meticulous when I am, working on these parts, just to make sure that I get everything right. Now, I'm going to take out some of those, like her skin, hair, not the skin. Just going to take out some of the hair that's here. Come up here, take out these ones too. I'm not being extremely careful right now because I'm not extremely close to her skin, but just take out all these parts. Now, I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there that has like an easier way of doing this, maybe just selecting that part and taking it out. But for the most part, the first thing that comes to my head when it comes to like I said, it's all about solving problems. The first thing that comes to my head when it comes to something like this is just using my clone stamp tool to just take this out. So let's get this done. So as you guys can see, just by taking this out, everything looks really nice and clean right now. Now, one thing I didn't tell you guys was how to actually use your clone stamp tool. To use your clone stamp tool is pretty easy if you don't know how to do it. All you have to do is, like I said, select your clone stamp tool. Now, when it comes to sampling, you're telling it to sample from here and the layer beneath it. That's why it's current and below, right? So right here and the layer below it, right? If you wanted to sample from all layers, let's say you have some layers on top or whatever, you just want to sample from all the layers under, then you just do sample all layers, right? So right now I'm just doing current and below because it's right here and basically sampling from the layers below. Now, when sampling, all you have to do is hold Option and you're telling it pick this spot right here, click on here and paint over this spot right here. Now, I did a shabby job there. What I'll do for that is reduce my opacity to work up here because I want to build it up gradually, right? So I'm trying to fill out some of these holes that are here on the hair because I don't want these holes to show, it just makes the whole image look a little bit shabby. So I'm just filling out some of these places. Now, when I use a low flow, it just makes the whole thing, I'll say a lot more seamless. You don't have too many dark areas popping up or areas that are a lot darker than other areas that are there. So I'll just fill up some of these parts right here. So I'm just sampling and painting over these areas right here, just filling up some of these areas right here, just like that. As you guys can see, some of these areas are filled up. I'll just clean some of this right here. So that looks a lot better up top. I can see some gaps here that I'm just going to fill up, and that looks a lot better up top. So let's see our before and our after. As you guys can see up top here, before and after. Okay, great. So now we've done a lot of the early I'd say editing that you need to get your images or your image to look really nice and clean, right? So the next thing we want to do is create a stamp visible layer. To create a stamp visible layer, what we need to do is hold Option, Command, Shift and E. So that's the Mac, Option, Command, Shift and E. on a PC, I think it is Control, Alternate, Shift, and E. That's what it is on a PC. So what I'll do is create a stamp visible layer up here. So everything that you've done will translate into one layer right here. Now, the next thing I like to do is go to Liquify and just work on some things in Liquify. Nothing too crazy, you know. You can always keep this for the end too, just in case you make a mistake, so it's easier to adjust there. But right here, what I'm just doing is just fixing up this part of the hair that I do not like. So let's see what that looked like before. Let's check that out. That was before, this is after. So you guys can see I made some tiny adjustments right there for the hair. This parts right here I don't like. Nothing crazy, as you can see. So I'm just going to click OK. You guys can see we fixed that part of the hair using Liquify. Okay, great. Now, when we're using Liquify, I'm just going to go back to Liquify. The brush I was using was the first brush up here. You can copy these settings. These settings are just a little bit easier and better to use for me. Okay, great. So now I've gotten our image to this place. Next thing I want to do is start retouching the skin, right? Now, like I told you guys earlier on, there are two techniques when it comes to retouching skin that I use. The first one and my go-to right now is using my Pro Retouching Pack. If you have not gotten my Pro Retouching Pack, then check it out, but you don't have to buy it. You can use frequency separation to start your retouching using the median frequency separation action that I have. Now, you can create your frequency separation action yourself. I have a ton of videos teaching how to create frequency separation actions. You can definitely check those out. But if you're trying to retouch faster, I feel like my Pro Retouching Pack is a good way to start. Like I said, there are two techniques, the Pro Retouching Pack and the median action that you can get from my just my retouching pack. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is click on beauty because it's a headshot, it's a beauty image, right? And I'll let my action do its thing. Now, with this, you still have to take out like the pimples, you know, and you know the other minor textures that are on your subject's face, right? But obviously, you do not want to take out everything. Okay, great. So now just wait for this to be done loading. It's going to create like a ton of layers that we are going to be working with. If you've gotten this action and you use it, then you already know how it works. Okay, great. Should be done any minute now. Okay, great. So now it's done doing stains. So what we're going to do is pick a brush tool, not a mixer brush, and take our flow up to, you know, anything above 20%, between 20 and 30%, right? So I'm going to open the beauty retouch and then I'll come to paint here, right here. Now what I'm going to do right now is just paint over my subject's skin, but I'll do my best to avoid, remember we're using a white brush because we're working on a layer mask right here. So we're going to be using a white brush. What I'm going to do is paint on my subject's skin. I would avoid her eyes, her eyebrows, you know, her lips, and nostrils, all those places, I'll avoid them. So what I'm going to do right now is just paint over my subject's skin. Just going to keep going till just going to paint over here, somewhere around here. I'm just going to keep going, maybe the nose, till I get the image to somewhere decent, somewhere I like. Okay, so somewhere around here is fine, right? Let me show you guys the before and after real quick. So right here, this is before, this is after. You guys can see it's done quite a decent job. Show you guys again. This is before, this after. Now for a lot of my work, this is typically the starting point, right? So I can see that a lot of the shadows are kind of like gone. So what I'm going to do is open my paint here and I'll come to blending, and then what I'll do is just reduce the blending effect. Now even after doing that, here's my before, here's my after. You can see it's doing a really good job. So I can go to extra smoothing and just work on some more transitions between shadows and highlights. Okay, great. Now what I'm going to do is reduce my flow to maybe like 5% and then come back down to paint here and work on her skin, you know, because we don't want the skin to be overly retouched, you know. Just work on her skin let's see, before and after, before and after. You guys can see that it looks absolutely great. So typically this is a great starting point for me. I will still come down to blending and maybe just reduce the effect of the blending just a little bit more, right? So typically this is a great starting point for me when it comes to retouching my headshots. So I'm just going to zoom in so you guys can see before and after. You guys can see it's done a great job. For a lot of people, this is more than enough. You know, they don't want to do more than this, but you know, we're just going to go in a little bit more. And the next thing I'll do is pick my clone stamp tool. Remember, last time I used my clone stamp tool, I used current and below. Right now I'm just going to work with my current clone stamp tool because what I'm trying to do is work on my high texture layer, right? Just this layer. We're not trying to work on this one below, just this layer up here. Okay, great. So what I want to do right now is just sample and take out any blemishes, any, you know, like irregularities I can see on the screen, on her skin. So I'll take my flow up to 100%. Typically I like working on my hardness all the way down. And what I'll do is just take out some of these smile lines that are right here, you know, just some minor imperfections that she has on her skin. Now I'm not going to be taking out any of her I'd say freckles. If there are freckles if there are freckles or anything there, any dark spot that she has there, I will not be taking out any of those because that's part of her skin. But for the most part, any other thing that just seems like shouldn't be there, or maybe like a part of her skin that's not really smooth, you know, I'm trying to make sure that everything matches, I'll just take some of those out. So sometimes you can sample and just paint over it, so sample and clicking, because I know some people do that. It takes quite a while to get an image edited if you're just sampling and clicking. So I'm going to zoom in here and take out some of the hair that's right here, you know, forming a nice unibrow. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but we're just going to take out some of those. Great. So you guys can see we're still maintaining a lot of texture that she has. Now, when it comes to taking out textures, I always tell people try to be as meticulous as possible when it comes to beauty images, because I feel like that tends to be the difference between a properly edited headshot and, you know, like a headshot that's not well done. So take out any texture that stands out. It really doesn't have to be a pimple or a blemish. It can just be any texture that is standing out a lot more than the other textures around it. You know, somewhere around here I can see some texture standing out there. Typically just take your time with it. And yes, okay. So at this point, now I'm not supposed to take this out, but it just does not seem right, so I'm going to take that out. Okay, great. And then work on these areas too. Okay, great. Now the next thing I'll do is just look around her body and see if we have, you know, any blemishes but she has pretty good skin, so there isn't too much to do, you know, with an image like this. Maybe just come to the back here and just take some of these out. But she really has good skin, so we don't have too much to do here. Okay, great. So this is where our image is. I feel like I would definitely spend a little bit more time if it was just me. I'll definitely spend a little bit more time to go in and, you know, just get some things sorted out, you know, right here. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing by taking out that part of the brow, but we are going to replace some parts of the eyebrows. We have like some brow layer there. Okay, great. So we have this image looking like this right now. Okay, great. So the next thing I do after getting my image to this point is still do another layer of micro dodge and burn. So what I'll do is click on my complete dodge and burn right here. You can get my actions. Link will be in the description below. If you do not want to get the actions, everything that my actions you can do by yourself, even my invert check layers, you can see how my invert check layers work. You can do that yourself if you don't want to get the actions. But if you want to support the channel, you can get my actions. So I'm going to close my invert check layer. I have some dodge and burn layers here. So I have my micro dodge and burn layers, 2 micro dodge and burn layers, and my global dodge and burn. So what I'm going to do is pick a brush, and I'll take my flow all the way to 1%. Now we have to make sure that brush is really soft, so hardness has to be on 0, right? Then I'll turn on my invert check layer, and I want to see just this part of the face, right? Now when you invert an image, right, like this, what happens is the parts that are dark show up as white, and the parts that are white show up as black. It's kind of confusing. I totally understand that. But all you have to do, or all you have to know when you're micro dodging an inverted layer, is you dodge any part that is white. If it's turning to black, an example is if I want to take out this, I would say this line right here. If I start dodging this place, you can see it's getting darker. If it's getting darker, then you're doing the right thing, right? See, it just got darker, you're doing the right thing. So that means you're taking out, can you see that shadow that is right there? We just took that out right here at this point. Look at that shadow right there. We just took that out. That's just all you have to understand when it comes to micro dodging and burning, or micro dodging and burning when it comes to, using an invert check layer, right? So right now, if I am burning, it's getting light. Once it's getting light, can you see that place got light? I'm doing the right thing, right? Okay, great. So what I'm just doing right here is using micro dodge and burn to, I would say, correct how light is falling on some parts of her face, right? Because one thing you don't want to do is overcompensate with frequency separation for how light is shaping your subject's face. You just don't want to do that, right? It's always nice to fix that with micro dodge and burn, because it just works better. You're not moving colors around. You're just messing with how light and how dark some parts of your subject's face looks, right? Okay, great. So what we're going to do is just fix some of these places, because let's see what that before and after looks like. You guys can see this was our before and this is our after. Take out some of the dark circles under her eyes. Take some of these out. Take some of these out. And then just zoom out. Typically, just see, because for the most part, remember, we have fixed a lot of imperfections that were there using the Pro Retouching pack. You guys can see this is all the work that the Pro Retouching pack has done for you. Typically, you'd have to do most of this work using micro dodge and burn, and now we're using micro dodge and burn just to fix up a few things, nothing too major, to be very honest. Then you can come to the body too, and if you just look around and there are any imperfections with light in there, you can fix that with your micro dodge and burn. Okay, great. So at this point, I don't think there is much more to do right here. I can see I have just a light patch there, and yeah, at this point I don't think there is quite a lot to do with our micro dodge and burn. I'd say we've done the little that we can do here with a micro dodge and burn, fix that up, and this is how our image looks right now. Remember, I told you guys I was going to show you 2 techniques, right? So what I'm going to do is turn off all these layers that I've worked on, right? And I'll just put this in a group and name it the first technique. So I just name it first skin, just name it first skin retouch. Okay, great. So that's our first skin retouch that we've done right there, right? I can just turn on these layers back, so anytime I turn it off and on, you guys can see that. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see our first screen retouch. So this is our before and these are after for our first skin retouch. Okay, great. Now for the second one, it's typically the same thing, but all I have to do is run my frequency separation, my median action, right? So I'll run the median action. I'll probably use a radius of about 30 for this, between 25 and 30 when I'm working on beauty headshots like this. Remember, I shot this image at like maybe f16 or so. Recently I've been shooting with really high apertures because I want my image to be really sharp. That's the thing I've been doing recently. So what I'm going to do is pick my mixer brush tool and just paint with it. Now typically I don't know why the mixer brush acts like this. It picks like the first color, but it'll do that again. It'll just probably paint black over. All I have to do is Command Z and that's gone. And what I'm going to do right now is right here on my low color layer, I will just use the mixer brush tool to work on this image. Now this is not as fast as using the Pro retouching pack. It's still very fast. It's not as fast. Then another thing is you have to understand the technique of using the mixer brush tool. If not, you are going to mess up your image. So that's one thing you have to put at the back of your mind. For the most part, I would do micro dodge and burn first before I use my frequency separation for my median frequency separation to just smoothen out the skin. But for the most part, I would use I'll do micro dodge and burn first. I just feel like that just helps me. It just helps me more when it comes to fixing the colors around your subject's skin. Like just fixing how the transition between highlights and shadows, basically for your subject's skin. And that way you don't have to move colors around too much, because what you need to understand is when you use the mixer brush tool, you are moving colors around your subject's face. Sometimes you want to move colors around just to fix things, but you just have to put at the back of your mind that anything can happen when it comes to this. And before you know, you've changed the entire shape of your subject's face, and you just don't want anything like that, right? So for the most part, this is what I've done using the mixer brush tool. As you guys can see, it didn't take me too long to do that too, but I've used the mixer brush tool for years. I understand the technique. As you guys can see, I'm moving with like a big brush and a small brush. It doesn't have to be the median. I prefer the median because I feel like the median just looks a lot more natural. But if you have my free frequency separation pack, you can just use the frequency separation actions that I have there, and then you'll be good, right? Okay, great. So this is our before and our after. Obviously I have to take out a lot of the skin textures and blah blah blah, but if we take that out and we do our before and after here, you can see that there isn't really a huge difference. I would say with the mixer brush tool, if I want to go, I'd say I just moved things. Obviously, like I said, it's moving colors around a lot more than with the skin retouch, where the thing with the action is all the shadows and highlights are still exactly where they're supposed to be, if you guys can see before and after. But with the mixer brush tool, because I'm moving colors around, you can see that there is a little bit of movement, when it comes to where the shadows were before and where the shadows are right now. But both techniques are really good. Anyone you want to use will work perfectly for you. Okay, great. So now that I've done this with the skin retouching, right, you can see a little bit of discoloration here with the skin retouch. I can fix this easily using the micro dodge and burn. If I go to micro dodge and burn 2, just check out my invert check layer. Okay, what I can do is just come in here, pick a soft white brush. Yeah, my flow is on 1. So what I'll do is just burn this ones just to get that out there. And if I want to dodge, I can just dodge some of these places just to fix this up. You guys can see I'm moving between using a big and a small brush. Okay. I mean, I'm not doing a perfect job, but let's see what before and after looks like. You guys can see before, after. That looks a lot better now using micro dodge and burn, and we'll fix that. I feel like we can still do a better job there, but this looks decent. I mean, you guys understand exactly what I'm doing. So right now, at this point, what I'm going to do is, for the most part, you don't have to, but sometimes I just turn off everything to see what the original image looks like. And then we're going to do global dodge and burn. For global dodge and burn, I like my flow to be on about 3. 2, 3 is fine. Make sure that your foreground color is white, because we are going to be revealing our dodge and burn layers. Basically, these are just what do you call them, masks, and what they just do is just hide the layer. So when you paint white on top, everything shows. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is just dodge this part of face, dodge this part. Any place that is meant to be, bright, you just dodge those parts. Just get the image looking good. The whole idea is for the image to stand out. That's the whole idea. Okay, great. So just dodging these parts. Now, another thing you should do with your dodge sometimes is zoom inside, right? And then get like the tiny highlights. For example, you can see the lips here. We're going to get that. That helps the image stand out a lot more than you actually know. So get some part of the lips here. Maybe like this she did for our eyes. We'll get those, maybe just a little bit of this right here. Can see right there, just those tiny specular highlights on your subject skin. We'll just get some of those, right? So let's see what our dodge looks like. Dodge looks good, and our burn is the opposite. So we're just going to make some places darker. So that's different between global dodge and burn and micro dodge and burn. Micro dodge and burn, you are trying to make the darker places lighter and the lighter places darker, so that you can control how light is on your subject skin, and that way you can control how smooth your subject skin looks, the transition between highlights and shadows. With global dodge and burn, you're trying to make the dark areas darker, and the bright areas brighter, because you're trying to add some contrast to your subject skin, right? Okay, great. Now, I don't do too much with my global dodge and burn. It's typically just a very easy fix for me. And let's see, this is what our subject looks like right now. So let's see our before and our after. So I'm going to zoom inside so you guys can see, because it's a pretty big screen. Sometimes it might look small on YouTube. Before and after, before and after. You guys can see we have done a pretty decent job. One thing I like to do is for the eyes, I have my free eyes and teeth whitening action. If you guys can get that, is just click on that, open it up, go here to this photo filter file, and then I'll just take my brush all the way to 100%, doesn't matter, and just paint the eyes like this, make it wider and brighter, and then I can just reduce my flow to a respectable amount. Somewhere around here is fine, because we don't want it to be too bright. One other thing that we can do is, you guys can see her eyes, I would say the iris is just a little bit too dark. So what I can do is just create a curves adjustment layer, raise this up, right? Invert that layer. So we're inverting our layer mask. That way we're hiding our layer mask. Pick a brush tool, just come inside here and just paint over this layer right here. So we just want her eyes to shine through and look a lot better. You guys can see that looks a lot better. Now we can reduce the opacity just a little bit to make it look a lot better, right? So let's see our before and our after. You guys can see how far we've come before and after. Now, I was telling you guys before that for an image like this, I like to fix the brow. So I'm working on a new pack where I'm going to have like brows, brushes, eyelashes and all that stuff. But for now, I just have a sample right here. So I'm going to move this to a new window, my sample, and just drag it into this image. I think I'll just click OK. Yes. Okay, great. So I will zoom out. And what I'll do is just reduce this. Obviously, I'm not using it for both eyes. It's just this one right here, right? Let me see. Right here, I can just stretch this out just a little bit more. because she has pretty long brows. You can see it gets all the way here. So you can click OK. First things first, create a layer mask, and what I want to do is just hide this one. So I just click X and just take that out. So I don't want that to show at all, right? Okay, great. So I'm just going to zoom in. You guys can see we have our brow in a decent position. So what I'm going to do is Command T and create this no, that is, yeah, so, oh, my bad. Click on the layer itself, Command T, and what I can do is click on this right here, and with this I can just mess around with, you know, like how I'll probably say the shape entirely. You know, I can just mess around with the shape entirely, just position it whichever way I want. So somewhere like here, you guys can see it's matching her brows a lot more now. So I'm going to click OK. This is I would say this is a little bit too much, as you guys can see. So what I'll do is reduce the opacity, right? And for some parts of this, I'll actually still clean it out. So I'll take this is just a sample, by the way, but I feel like I can make it work. Because if I told you I replaced my bad, paint on the layer mask. If I told you guys I replaced the brows in the original image, I don't think anybody would believe that. So, you know, just take some of these out, reduce the opacity, the flow of my brush, just reduce it. And then what I can do is just paint some middle parts out of this, so it just looks a lot natural. Another thing that I tend to do is change the color of this. So what I can do is just, so for this layer right here, what I can do is create a hue saturation layer, then I'll pin it down. So hold Option and pin it down to this layer, right? Then click on colorize, and what I can do is just mess around with this with saturation of, yeah, lightness. And what I can do is just mess around with this. So somewhere around here is her skin color. I can then reduce the lightness to just match something around here that's a skin color. You know, reduce the saturation too. So something around here is like a skin color. And, you know, just something like that. Just still reduce the lightness. Okay, great. So that way it looks, you know, you guys can see that it matches her skin color a lot better than when it was just black. I mean, I'll do the same for the other brow too. I can literally just, let's say for this one, I can duplicate, Command J to duplicate this, right? And what I'll do is just move this out the way. I can flip this, so edit, go to transform, and then flip horizontally. Yes, that's it. Let's just zoom inside to get like a better view of where I want this to be. Somewhere around here, Command T again. Let's move the whole image here just to get it to line up with the brows that are actually here right now. I feel like this is going to be a lot smaller than the other one. So somewhere around here looks good. I need to bring this in. So Command T again, and then this, and maybe I can just bring this whole thing in right here to match with that. Just figure out the way I can fix this up. I feel like this is pretty decent. I think that's decent. It's not great. It's decent. I don't think anybody will realize. The brows are kind of standing out a lot right now, though. Let's put both of them in like a group. Command G. You guys can see the brows are standing out a lot more than before. I'll probably just reduce the opacity of the brows right here. Let's see that. Yes, when I reduce the opacity, it looks a lot better. But her brows are a lot fuller right now, and I feel like that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That looks better. Yeah, you can see some emptiness here, but yeah, that's fine. Okay, great. So now we've gotten our image to this level. Let's see where it's at. So this is our before, this is our after. I'm just going to zoom inside to show you guys where we're at right now. This is our before, this is our after. Looks pretty damn good. Next thing I'll do is come to my levels, which I always do. Hold option or alternate, just pull this in a little bit so basically what we're doing is we're dragging our whites in, right? To see if your whites are peaking, your highlights are peaking, you hold option. Once you start seeing this, that means your highlights are peaking, so you don't want to see any of this red. So if you just want to see a little bit, so somewhere around here is fine. And then, you know, add some contrast to the image. 12 is a lot, so somewhere around 10 is fine. You guys can see we have a really beautiful image right here. So let's see our before and our after. That looks absolutely gorgeous. Okay, great. Maybe just add what do you call it, a lot. From one of my lots I would use not here. I will use one of my skin tone lots, so maybe 4 or 6. Let's see what 4 looks like. 4 looks great. It looks great. So somewhere around here, reduce the opacity. And yeah, that looks really good. So let's see our before and our after. Before and after. That looks great. So what I'm going to do is save this image right now, and then I'll go back to Capture One and then just do a few things to Capture One, and our image is ready. Okay, so now we are back in Capture One, and you guys can see our before and after. I'll put it side by side. This is our before right here, and we have our after right here. Now, can I even move that so it's the other way around? No, it doesn't work. Great. Anyways, so just take both of them out and put our before. Still the same thing, but anyways, we have a before right here and we have our after right here. And if we zoom in right here, you can see the job we've done. Just going to use the nose right here as a point of reference, and you guys can see the job we've done. We've done a pretty decent job. Now if you zoom in, you can tell with the with the brows, but I mean, for the most part, if it's going on social media, nobody can tell. And left to me, I will probably do a better job with the brows, maybe draw them out individually. That's a tutorial that I'll do later in the future, just to make it stand out better. But for the most part, nobody will notice if it's all zoomed out. You guys know now. Okay, great. Now, the last thing I'll do in Capture One, which I've been doing for most of my images, is just add some grain. So I'll probably just come to tubular grain and just add some grain to my images. It's just the new thing that I do right now for most of my images, you know, just adding grain to it. Why? I don't know. I just feel like it looks better with grain. And yeah, we're done here. If you want to, support this channel, subscribe. Also check out my retouching packs. I have the Pro Retouching pack and I have my Retouching Essentials pack. And check out my skin tone lots. It'll help you retouch better and retouch faster. And yeah, I hope you guys learned something today, and I hope this will help you improve your retouching and take your retouching to a whole new level. I'll be doing a lot more retouching videos moving forward because I just started shooting a lot more, and I have a lot more images to retouch. I have some other portrait images to retouch from this look that I'll be doing very soon. And a lot of my retouching videos are going to be very lengthy moving forward. So yeah, definitely check it out and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys really like the content. Just show you guys again, this is before, this is after. Use the nose as reference point. Just zoom in. This is before right here, this is after. And that's it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have an amazing day, guys. Bye bye.